I am so excited to introduce Jennifer. She and I found each other online and have become online friends. And I think what she does is so interesting, but so important and also very topical for the political climate that we are in right now, especially going into this election season. I am so excited to talk to Jennifer today, interview her, and talk about finding peace and healing after your abortion. Jennifer, can you share more about your background and what inspired you to focus on helping women heal after their abortions?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so glad that we connected. I am post abortive. I had an abortion in 1990. It was the day after my 17th birthday, and it was something I wanted. Nobody was going to talk me out of it. I was too young, wasn't going to go down this path. I didn't realize how emotional and complicated it would be afterwards. And I was told at the time, your life will go right back to normal. And it didn't. And I suffered silently for 17 years. So it was my oldest son was in middle school and I was driving him to middle school and something popped up. He was an unplanned pregnancy as well with my husband. We've been together 28 years. And I was like, oh, why is that coming up? Why is my abortion coming up now? All of a sudden, I was like, I need healing. Something, why is this? I just couldn't get it off my brain. It just kept coming up. So I went through healing. It was a Christian based healing program. I'm not in the church anymore. That's a whole nother story, but we won't get into. So a couple of years ago, I had a download to create a post-abortion healing journey that was not founded on religion. A lot of them out there are Christian based and they're wonderful, but there are a lot of women out there that don't connect with that. And so I had this download and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to step into this arena again because when I was in the church, I led post abortion healing, Bible studies, and all of that. I know how tough this is. Do I really want to do this? And again, couldn't get it off my mind. And so I just sat down and I wrote a 6-week curriculum based on my background as in mental health therapy. I'm a women's circle facilitator, I'm a womb healing facilitator. And so I just took everything that I've learned and made this really beautiful healing journey for women that has no, and I hate to use the word agenda, but no, I'm not trying to save anybody and bring them to Christianity. I'm not trying, it's just based on healing.
What do you feel like is the biggest misconception that women who have had an abortion are facing in our society right now?
I think that's funny because I was reading this for me last week when you sent the questions, and I was like, really, one of the biggest misconceptions is that this is an easy decision to make and that we're heartless women. And people have no idea what goes into making this decision. It is agonizing. It is for many of us. There are some women who I don't speak for all women, but for the women that I work with, but it's a really hard decision. And there's so many emotions that come with it. And then you have your abortion, and then it's okay, go on with your life. And what do you do? And so you're left with no support. And then also hearing from society, you made that choice, get over it. And
Yeah,
that drives me
but very complex decision, but it's also a very complex feeling after the fact.
there's so many misconceptions. And I think society as a whole towards post-abortive women, we talked about this, like the comments that I receive on social media, they're just like horrific. I say I will continue to speak up and I take the brunt of it because if one woman just steps forward and says, hey, I need healing, because I feel like the people who are saying these negative things, they're blocking women from healing. And so they're stuck in this silence and suffering.
You feel since the 90s, things have shifted a little bit.
I've gotten louder in the sense of there's more people outside of abortion clinics who are protesting, which makes it really difficult for women. They're already feeling bad enough. And then you're walking through picket lines and all of that. I think we get caught in that crossfire, right? It's like we're on this shaky foundation as it is because you're making this choice. It's a hard choice. And then you've just got stuff being thrown at you from both sides.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's so funny. Not funny because it's horrible that you mentioned like people protesting outside of abortion clinics. But I used to go to Planned Parenthood to do my well care when I lived in San Antonio because I just really liked the practitioners there. And one day there were just all of these protesters outside of this Planned Parenthood. And they're like banging on my window and like shoving their signs in my face. And I was like, I'm here for a yeast infection because they
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. And it scared me going there for a yeast infection.
Yeah. And I think what really makes me angry, and of course, coming from the church and having deconstructed and all of that, is if you listen to your book and you read your Bible, like, why are you so nasty? And why are you coming at women like that? Where's the compassion? Where's the grace? Where's the listening and like being there for women, whether or not they make this
Yeah,
decision or
there's
not?
no
Like,
way to decrease.
you're not, yeah, you're not going to change anybody's mind with that aggression.
Yeah, I will say I know of an organization, and the organization does, I think, is really cool. And it's based in like my hometown, but they actually give women resources. And they're like, if you are making this decision because of poverty, like, we're going to help you out. We're going to make sure all of your medical bills get paid for. We're going to make sure that you need everything that you need for that baby. We're going to make sure that you are set up for success in post.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you're going to be pro life, like, that is actually pro life
Yes.
helping
Because the
better
people
at all.
only, and it was funny because I don't go after my haters and critics very often online, but every now and again, I'll be in a feisty mood. I'll go back. But I said to him, I'm like, tell me what you do for single moms or women who are coming out, right? And what are you doing to support? Because really, you're just pro birth if you're not helping afterwards, if you're not helping them be successful and get a career or, what all of the things, resources, diapers, for whatever it is. What are you doing after? Because that's not pro-life if you're not helping after.
Yeah, I feel like at any point in time, community is so important, but if you are not willing to offer community and support, like,
Yeah.
what other options do people have? I was considered infertile, and I got pregnant with my first daughter 2 weeks after a doctor told me, "You're never gonna get pregnant on your own."
Oh, that's incredible.
And it's just crazy, like, not having sex is like we wouldn't tell a man to just not have sex,
Right.
expect them to do.
Yeah. That's
But
the other thing. Like you just said, we're not going to tell a man to have sex. I did a post about like, where's all of the anger and hatred towards the men who are part of these decisions? Like they just get let off the hook. And so a lot of times the man is, I don't want this baby right now. And they're making it really hard for the woman.
seen that happen was
Wow.
married couple,
Yeah.
not gets pregnant, and dad's, "Nope, get an abortion."
Yeah. Like,
Mom's like, "I don't want one." Like,
yeah. And so then it's a little bit coercive almost or manipulative because they feel like they don't have any other choice. Is he going to leave me? Is he going to this? So it's like, why are we, the women, the only ones who are getting vilified and all of this? What about the men? So many of them walk away, unfortunately.
what role do you think that community and peer support play in healing after an abortion?
I think it plays a huge part, and I think there needs to be more of it, even within myself, because a lot of the things I do online, and I really need to get out into my community and go to the Planned Parenthoods and all of that. Like, this is what I offer. Here's a free resource. Here's this. Here's where you can find. I have so many free resources online, but it's like, so as a women's circle facilitator, bringing women together, and I stand so firmly on this, is magic in medicine, right? Because when you're doing deep work together, you don't feel alone. You're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not the only one," because so often we feel so isolated. "Okay, there's something wrong with me because I'm feeling this," and so we have to come together.
I'm happy with my decision, so I'm not
Yeah.
going to have these complex.
And I just, yeah. And I try to make that so clear. Everything you're feeling is valid, right? Like you're entitled to feel how you want to feel. Some women feel extreme relief. Some people do, women don't. And so it's bringing awareness and having more opportunity to bring women together. So because my groups, obviously they're my work and you pay for them or whatever. But if I can maybe do a couple that are free to the community to get more women in to heal, I think that could be really powerful. So I need to step up more in that sense too, being out in the community.
I love the accountability, Judy. People aren't just getting abortions because they want an abortion. There's a lot of families that have to make a very difficult choice to abort their babies that were very wanted and very
Yeah.
loved and just
Yeah.
going to survive outside of the womb, or it's going to mom, or like a
Yes.
twin or whatever.
There's so many, and that's what I think so many people don't understand, like the critics and the haters. There's so much to that decision. And so to take away women's rights, which there's been a war on women for millennia. And it's like, how it's like, again, with moving Roe v. Wade to the States, I get it. I heard somebody say this last night and I thought it was interesting. So I hadn't thought about like this. We have more power in our local and state elections than we do at the federal level. So
I
it was brought
for
back to the state.
years, I've been
Yeah.
saying that for years because I have done a lot of work volunteering for, like, smaller, like, more local political campaigns.
Sure.
And genuinely, I know that you probably, if you're listening to this, don't
Yeah.
think that your local elections matter or your state
I know.
elections, but they are I think they're
They
more important than president.
I do. It's really funny when that all came down. I was in a retreat up in Charlotte for a training that I was doing. And I was so angry that next morning because it was like all over TikTok and all of that. And one of the women there, like she, not the facilitator, but she like was like, I think Jen needs to release some anger. And we did this somatic exercise where two women held me back and there was another woman standing in front of me saying all the things that the patriarchy would say to women. I raged like I have never raged before. It was the most beautiful and cathartic thing because as women, we're taught don't be angry, don't express your anger, keep it together. To release that in such a safe space and know that I was held, my mentor facilitator, she's amazing. And the training that she does to be able to release that sacred rage and be held, we need more of that. We need to rage as women together. We need to heal as women together. We need to grieve together. And I heal women are going
So
to heal the world.
I cried so much that year because Roe gets overturned, Uvalde happened, and then it's like this dystopian thing watching Roe get overturned, and then to go from this to, well, these children are getting shot. It's like, this is not about children
Yeah.
at all. That was such a dystopian year. I feel like year since COVID has been a little yeah, correct. But that year was insane. You're working with these women. Do you notice any common themes or experiences that women are sharing during their healing journeys after their abortions?
So one of the first, I need to start doing this and I need to ask their permission. So when we first start our group, like our first meeting, everybody is deer in the headlights. What the hell am I doing here?
They've probably never gotten to talk about it openly.
They have, yeah, they have experience. So they have resistance, there's fear, there's all of that. One of the things that I notice is they don't feel worthy of healing. They feel like they're a bad person because of what they've done. This is why I want to take a picture because when they first come in to where they are at the end of the 6 weeks, the physical transformation, it blows my mind. They're glowing again and they're lighter emotionally and physically, like you can see it on their faces. And it's so beautiful. And one of the women, she just came through my last group and she said, you helped me put the pieces of my heart back together. It was incredible.
It is really beautiful.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have high cortisol or need to use a gua
Yeah.
sha, like, maybe you just need to
Heal.
on your emotional stuff.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, the transformation of being able to release that, whatever it is that's coming up for you with your abortion, because a lot of it is guilt and shame. And that's what I said. It's feeling like you're a bad person and you did something wrong. Two things can be true at once. It could have been the best decision for you at the time, and it can be incredibly painful, and you need to grieve and heal because you're grieving what could have been. People get upset with me because I say this, but this is coming from my spiritual side. Like every soul chooses their journey. And I truly
I
believe,
genuinely I feel like we choose the families that we come into.
yeah,
I believe that. I genuinely
yeah,
feel like we choose our paths, like, our soul comes into our body knowing the work that we're planning to do
yeah,
when we get to
yeah.
this time.
Yeah.
And I
And so I feel like these souls know what they're signing up for and they're not angry with you, right? There's lessons in all of it. So I would have a 33-year-old daughter right now. I know her name. I see her a lot in my thoughts. Like I feel like I do this work in honor of her. And I do this really beautiful piece where you can meet your sacred soul or souls. So my daughter always comes to me, she's like a 7-year-old, long blonde hair. But I know she's around me all the time and she's cheering me on. Yeah, keep doing this work. There's a great book called Spirit Babies, and he talks about them.
I'm a fertility doula as well. So
Yeah.
I work with a lot of women who have had lots of miscarriages or they've experienced stillbirth. And I always go back to the idea of spirit babies. And one thing I love out of that book that I was going to bring up is that sometimes babies just want that human experience, like souls want human experience, and they don't necessarily want to live like outside of the womb. They just want that experience in the womb. And that's why they choose.
Yeah.
When relation to miscarriage, I think is really beautiful because I tell people maybe your baby's soul just needed to know
And
unconditional love for
a little
and
bit,
they got
yeah.
what they needed and they were able to like move on and go to their next.
Yeah, I know. It's so interesting. And then there's, I don't know if you follow him, Bashar, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but he's like a channeler. And somebody asked him about abortion, and I can send it to you. And he was like, they know what they're signing up for. They know exactly, the soul knows what it's coming through for and what it's doing. And then what do you do with your experience and your lessons and all of that? And it was really beautiful. His was way more eloquent than that, longer. But
That's
people are gonna fret when I say
how I
that.
feel. Yeah, but no,
Yeah.
that's cool if they're coming from an
Yes.
evangelical background.
Yes.
And I also had to deconstruct, but I do. I genuinely feel like we know what we're signing up for, picking these life lessons that our
Uh,
souls need to learn, and we get the growth that we need. And sometimes
yeah.
that doesn't have to happen outside of the womb.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's so vast and amazing.
It just makes a complex subject so much more and part of I reached out to you after I saw this very powerful video where a pastor was asking his congregation to raise their hands if they had adopted or fostered a child. And so many people very quickly raised their hands and they were very proud to raise their hands. And then when he asked birth mothers to raise their hands, not a single person in this very large congregation did. If all these people have adopted and fosters and there's not a single birth mother in our
Why
church,
aren't we honoring the birth
he,
mom for her decision?
clearly the numbers are off. Like
Yeah.
they're skewed. And he responded by saying, if we haven't created an environment where you are comfortable speaking about your experience, that is
That's
on.
enough. Yes.
And to me, this just like really highlights the shame if women choose abortion or adoption
Yes.
through and overcome the shame because it really feels like you just can't win in that situation.
First, I want to speak to birth mothers because I worked in adoption for almost 10 years. My daughter's adopted. And I worked with birth mothers and have been in so many delivery rooms with my birth moms. I think they are the most incredible, strongest, bravest women I have ever met. To be able to say to this child, I can't give you the life that you want. And so I am going to make an adoption plan for you. I think that's the most beautiful, bravest thing that a woman can do. It's incredible. And yet there's shame in that. And so when I was in adoption, I would work with them on the grief and loss process too, because unfortunately, some adoption experiences, the birth mother's just forgotten. That made my blood boil too, because they're going through something that's really traumatic and they need to grieve properly and grieve their loss because it's an open adoption or it's not an open adoption. It's just pictures and letters for
Even
18.
if they're not really open adoptions.
Yeah, and some of my adoptive families, it's fun because we're on Facebook together and they have open relationships with their birth mothers, and I just think it's incredible. Like, I see pictures of them all together, and it just makes my heart so happy. And so that shame is a big piece, and that shame is something that you have to work through, and I think that's part of why I do what I do because I felt so shameful for so long. And so being with other women who have walked this journey, going through the healing, allowing yourself to get angry. I do an anger piece because that anger piece is big because not only are you angry at yourself, sometimes you're angry at the key players in your story.
And
Yeah.
also, shame is an advanced emotion, I want to say.
Yeah.
So sadness isn't really like sadness. Like
Right.
most things are anger. And then we them
And
in
we
fake.
cloak them in other things. Yeah. So doing that anger piece is big because once again, as women, we're told you can't be angry and finding our way through life.
Like the weight of the decision falls on women when there's other key players, there's dads involved,
Yeah.
there's,
Your parents, like your
yeah,
parents.
parents involved, there's
Yeah.
congregations involved, there's
Yeah.
circles involved. It's not just this decision. There's other factors playing into the decision.
And I just remember with my experience, like my parents supported me. They were like, this is your decision and whatever you decide. And yet, when I was going through my anger piece, I found that I was angry at them as well. Like, not that I would do, like, they were lovely and did the right thing and just supporting me, but there was some anger there. There was anger at the doctor. There was anger at the nurse, right? There was anger all around. And it was really being able to go through all of that anger towards everybody because anger is not bad. It's a great emotion. It's just being able to honor it and move through it in a healthy way. When we don't, I self destructed. I numbed. I became a people pleaser, codependent. I had a lot of rage underneath and it would come out in unhealthy ways. When I went through healing, it all clicked. And I was like, oh, this is where it's coming from. It was like my personality changed a little bit because I was so ashamed of myself.
Yeah. Also, like you said that you were 17 when you had your petulant teenager, like that's inner child. Like that
Yeah.
was very much part of your inner child and like having
Yeah.
from that.
I get women from all over the world, which I think is incredible. But it was the same thing. Like, your life will go back to normal. You'll be fine. And I'm like, no, like, we have to say to these women, here's what you could be feeling. Here's what could come up for you. And so maybe it's just more, I think here it might be a little bit better because I know there's like pamphlets and stuff like you could feel this and there's hotlines and things like that from Planned Parenthood. And, but yeah, I was really like shocked to hear that.
It is so frustrating. And that is really cool, like working with women
Yeah.
because as
Yeah.
open as we feel the US is, there
Yeah.
are genuinely women who have it way worse off.
Way worse. Yes.
Other
Yeah.
countries,
Yeah,
Africa,
and I feel just so honored that they find me on social media, and you see my clips, they're like 3 to 7 seconds, and that they reach out to me because they feel like I'm a safe space. I just feel really honored that they choose to step in with me. It's really beautiful.
how can those of us who are pro-choice or do have women in our lives that we love that decide to make that decision for themselves, how can we better support them emotionally and mentally? Because I feel like just being supportive of the abortion,
Yeah.
not enough. So how can we support them before and after they have their abortion?
I think one of the best things to do is to just hold space for them, not give advice, not give your opinion. Do you know what I mean?
It's
And have
very
that
hard, very
it's
hard for a
so
lot.
hard to do for a lot of people, but it's checking in. How are you feeling? What's coming up for you? What are you feeling in your body? Because so often our body tells us so many things like, is there tightness in your body? And so it's keeping it about them and not about like our perspective. Buy them groceries after an
Yes.
abortion. You don't want to do anything. You're sitting in it and you're sitting in this heaviness. And plus, physically, your body is healing. Holding space is big in the sense of just sitting with somebody. Maybe you're not even talking, but you're just there.
It's the situation, just be
Right.
somebody.
And most people try to fix because they're uncomfortable in the grief and in the, yeah, and that's where I see tend to land all the time. I'm very still
Yeah.
heavy. Like I get it when it makes people uncomfortable, but it's really important for women to know like that they are seen, heard, and loved no matter what.
Also, it's okay to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. Most people aren't okay with being uncomfortable.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know we've talked a lot about Roe, and it's very important, especially with this election cycle coming up. But what are some ways in a post-Roe landscape that we can ensure that women have access to both reproductive health care and mental health resources after an abortion?
But it's hard because, like you said, you're in Texas. You're in one of the strictest states. There's a woman that I follow on TikTok. Her name is Jessica Valenti. She has a newsletter and it's called Abortion Every Day. And I would encourage people to get, she knows all the laws, all the states where, like, where votes should go, all of this stuff. And she has just been a wealth of information for me. And I can send you her information too, because it's Florida now too. Florida's 6 weeks. Half the time you don't even know you're pregnant at 6 weeks.
I didn't get a positive pregnancy test with my
Right.
second daughter, and I knew I was pregnant. The moment her soul entered my body, I knew I was pregnant, and it took me 8 weeks to get a
Yeah.
positive pregnancy test. With my first daughter, I didn't know until 10 weeks.
Yeah.
The whole cryptic pregnancy, I got to 20 plus weeks. We're
That's you're
becoming
the
pregnant.
second person that I've heard, like, that's happened. I just think that's incredible. Yeah. Yeah, that's a hard one because each state has different things, and I don't even know, like, I need to check into Planned Parenthood and what's going on with them with
No,
just
yeah, and
then
then some
for
state your Planned Parenthoods have the funding to fly people out, and I know that there are nonprofits that will organize your travel and your hotel stay for you as well.
and then I was hearing, like, and I don't know if it was Texas, and it's illegal if they catch you, like, crossing state lines to go
If I wanted to go on a trip with a friend to
yeah.
Colorado, I could go to jail for that.
These medical professionals that can go to jail if they're performing work. It is.
Murky because they don't know what they can and they can't do. I had a miscarriage in June and I started bleeding too heavy. And I'm a doula, like I'm around this stuff all the time. And I knew I was bleeding too heavy. And I felt like all I could do at that point was call my midwife and have her come check on me because I was not going to the hospital and
Right.
you just don't know what's going to happen. You
I
know,
know.
especially in Texas.
Our whole medical system, that could be a whole other topic, not just for pregnancy, but for everything. I've said my goal is to, knock on wood, be healthy and never have to go to the hospital.
I will say I'm going to get resources from you, and I'm
Okay.
also willing to include resources
Yeah.
outlined in the
Please do.
episode.
Surely. Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to someone who wants to be an ally to women who have had abortions but isn't
Mhm.
sure where to start?
That's a good question. I'm like, just do it. And I guess you would have to find something that's aligned for you. Do you know what I mean? Maybe you just want to hold a space for women, do a women's circle for women, put something together yourself. Maybe you want to go volunteer somewhere and be that grief and loss support.
Planned Parenthoods, they have a program where you can actually help escort women into the building.
There's so many different things you can do. And then after, follow up, right? If it's your friend, if it's whatever, family member, follow up, make sure you're checking in. And I tell women too, like, grief doesn't have a timeline, which you know as well. Like, it doesn't, it's not linear, there's no timeline. So a lot of women feel relief afterwards and they can for months and then all of a sudden. So it's like checking in. Like, I have friends and I've just recently, and it's 6 months later, and I'm like, hey, just want to ask you, is anything coming up or how are you feeling? And possibly because I'm in this world, it's not the norm for most people, but it's having that conscious, like, it's a trauma in some way for
After,
anyone.
like, any loss too,
Yeah.
feel like you have just experienced this thing that rocked your whole world and it stopped your world from spinning, but the world is still spinning. Everyone's lives are still moving on. And it's like, how do I
Yeah.
on?
Yeah. And giving for any post abortive woman out there listening, give yourself space, allow yourself to feel what's ever going to come up. And I think that was a huge lesson for me because I suppressed everything because I felt like I wasn't supposed to feel this way. I made this choice. I wasn't supposed to be feeling these things, and that's just not true. So allowing them to come up, reaching out to somebody that you can trust. If not, look for resources like me or other amazing resources out there that can be of help.
And it's interesting that you said what you said about the trauma sticking with you. And I really like truly believe that we know scientifically that the body keeps the score. Were there
Yeah.
themes
Another
for
book.
you? Yes, but were there things for you, or have you noticed a correlation in the women that you work with where the physical trauma has shown up in their bodies?
Yes, yes, absolutely, and it can show up in different ways, and so as it left side is feminine, all of my pain and everything was always on my left side, and it was because I needed to heal. If my back goes out, it's my left side. If something happens, it's my
I
left
get oral
side,
migraines in my left side.
and that's okay, what is my body telling me? And so it's yes, it's like really being conscious of what is your body telling you, and I just did a thing on 3 somatic practices, and it's touching yourself, right? Like, where you're feeling that tension and loving yourself tenderly, right? I do vaginal steaming, yoni steaming, and that is a great way, not only for, like, reproduction and all of that, but healing. Like it releases trauma from your body. And it's
Yes.
really incredible.
To your body because along
Yeah.
work, especially as a body ready method pro, I work with so many women that they and because I work with a lot of women who are healing from post birth trauma or sexual assault. Like
Yeah.
I have those lived in experiences, so I can hold that space for them. But there's so many women that just have zero connection to their pelvic floor,
Connected to their body.
and their pelvic floor is so connected to the psoas, which is literally the muscle of
Yeah.
the soul.
Yep.
It's just the way things show up in your body, and if you but especially with my moms that have experienced sexual assault, they are completely, like, disconnected from people.
And it's interesting with the yoni steaming. Sometimes I do make a ritual out of it and I'll light candles or whatever. And sometimes it's really bad. Like, and sometimes I will find myself sobbing because it's releasing whatever needs to be released at that moment. And it's really amazing what those herbs can do, right? As releasing trauma from your body.
How do you think your work has shown up in your relationship with your children?
I feel I am so open with my kids, and that has been part of the healing. I come from a family who's
On it.
like an Italian Catholic family, and I'm so Italian and Scotch, and everything was a secret. And I'm like, no, like I am just like, all right, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. And so they sometimes they get sick of me. And my husband will be like, oh, like, why do you have to?
And when hey, you have a pelvic anterior tilt.
But with my kids, like, they come to me with everything. Like, they're not ashamed to talk about anything. Like, we're so close. And I think that having those conversations, when I was first going through my healing journey and walking with birth mothers and everything, I tell my boys, be smart enough to not put a woman in a position that I was in. I'm like, you never want to put a woman there. I said, because when you're in that position, a woman has three choices. They can parent, they can make an adoption plan, or they can have an abortion. And when it's an unwanted pregnancy, whatever you choose is gonna be really
Yeah.
hard.
Much easier for a man to put on a condom than it is for a woman to
Just wrap it. Yes. And having those conversations with my daughter, she's adopted and her story is always an open book. She's from China, so obviously she doesn't look like us. But like having talks about her birth mother and when if she ever wanted to try to locate her, like I would love to meet her. And I think about her all the time. Hope that she knows that her daughter is safe and amazing and she's this incredible human being. And so it's
have affected and appreciated.
yeah. So I've experienced adoption, parenting, and abortion. And so I'm just an open book. Like I don't hide anything anymore. And I think that has broken a lot of that generational trauma of secrecy and things like that.
I want to follow up on our conversation where we talked about themes that you see consistently show up in the women that you work with. I'm curious because they're in Texas has been a large rise, and we have poured more money than ever into the life centers and
Like the
a
pregnancy resource
yes,
centers.
yes.
I listen, I volunteered at one for years when I was in the church.
And a lot of women that I know have had abortions have had very bad experiences with those facilities. What are they sharing with you about their experiences with those facilities?
I just had a woman come forward and she was like, they were so rude to me. And I was like, really? So the one that I worked at when I was working there, like we had just incredible volunteers and many were post abortive, right? If you're a pregnancy resource center, women are walking into you pregnant, looking for, yeah. And like, why are you shaming them?
They're having abortions.
Yeah. And
That's
so
such a huge number of women.
maybe within those resource centers, there needs to be some trauma informed training
Mhm.
because I've been trained in trauma and being trauma informed. And it's okay. Like you said, they're coming from domestic violence. They're coming from situations that aren't safe. You need to be the safe haven if you're opening your doors for this. I'm like the pregnancy resource centers, they're trying to bring you to Christ. They're trying to save you. They're trying to save the baby. Like they're doing all of these things. And I'm just focused on the woman healing. And people get upset with me, but I'm like, no, that's my focus. And so their focus needs to be on that woman coming in the door. What's her situation? What's going on with her? Not just trying to get her to receive Christ. or choosing life, right? Focus on this woman. What's best for her? What's going on in her life?
And as someone who grew up highly evangelical church, he can completely be constructed. And then I still consider myself a Christian. Like, I love Jesus,
Mhm.
coolest person ever. But at the same time, a lot of people who have not left the evangelical church and haven't done any type of deconstructing think that shoving the Bible down someone's throat is what's going to bring them to Christ. And if you're an evangelical Christian or someone that's deconstructed, I think the best way to actually bring someone to Christ is to act like Christ.
And love.
Because what Christ would not act like that to someone that he knew was in pain or hurting or going through a really difficult situation.
Yes, and I call it a Christ consciousness, right? He loved everybody. Yes, he had righteous anger and all this stuff, but this evangelical, they've just twisted so much and it's become about rules and laws and all of these things. It's like being the light, right? We're light. You're a light for your clients. I'm a light for my clients, and we're just spreading the light and the love and the healing and the holding space and really being a safe space for women. And I think you're right. That's showing Christ.
I completely agree.
Yes.
Well, I know we've talked, you've shared anecdotes from like with women that you've worked with and things like that, but do you have a story from your work that you feel like really just highlights the impact of post-abortion healing?
Gosh, there's so many of them. I get emails after the group and everything, and it's just really hearing like how much lighter that it was, how it changed their life, how it changed their perception of themselves, right? That they're not a bad person, that they're not unworthy, that they can love themselves. And we do a forgiveness piece as well, because sometimes you feel like you're a bad person. You want to forgive yourself for. And so, yeah, it's like finding that peace is just really such a common theme that it's like you reclaim your power and you reclaim your voice. Because I think for many post-abortive women, we lose our confidence and we lose our voice and we lose a part of our power. And so it's like reclaiming that power and really stepping back into who you are and knowing that you're not a bad person and you didn't do anything wrong.
Do you feel like being able to connect with other women who have had abortions? Because I'm sure a lot of people, I've heard people be like, I've never known anyone that's had an abortion.
1 in 4 women have had an abortion. So you sit in a circle of 5 women, there's going to be one in there that has probably had an abortion that hasn't said anything.
Do you feel like it's helpful for them to actually connect with other women and hear
Yeah.
their stories?
Sit in circle with other women and know you're not alone. I think that's the biggest medicine, right? Being
I think
seen.
when we're able to, like, if you're not able to talk about it,
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah. Hearing other women's stories, like that is medicine. That is, I'm not alone. Oh my gosh. Like I said before, we suffer silently thinking we're the only one that feels this way. When no, there's so many women who feel this way. So when you bring a group of women together, I'm telling you, magic and medicine, the healing that happens is beautiful. And the friendships that come from it. I've been circling with women since 2020, 2021. I have friends all over the world now. I just went to England 2 years ago to meet them face to face, and I've been on Zoom with them for 2 years, and it was just so beautiful. Like that those connections that you make, it's just I stand on that foundation of healed women are gonna heal the world.
I also genuinely think that women need other women. Like,
Yeah.
we do
Meet
need
other
each
women.
other. It's important to know women who have had shared experiences with you.
Yeah. And unfortunately, with our patriarchal society, women have been pitted against each other. So women don't feel like women are safe. And when you start circling with other women and doing this kind of work, like not just post abortion, but any kind of work of healing and expansion and growth, you realize, oh, there are women who are safe. There are women who are incredible human beings, right? Or been jealous, competitive, right? All of these things and when we can get that out of there, that's when things change for the better.
Magic happens.
Yeah. They have,
Let women topple down the system.
I'm like, we need to deconstruct the system and let more women.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Go.
This is a tough question. How do you see the conversation around abortion and post-abortion healing evolving in the future?
Yeah. I honestly, I don't know. I hope that like the work that I'm doing and the awareness that I'm bringing is making an impact and making more women come forward to talk about it. Like I said, that Jessica Valenti is amazing, and she brings women's stories of a baby dies in the womb at 24 weeks and now she can't do any, right? Come on. So she's bringing all this awareness. So I hope the conversation is turning, that there's more and more women becoming more vocal, which I think there is. I hope it changes for the positive. Like it's like you said, it's part of healthcare. I don't know. Our world is so loud right now.
Like everyone's holding their breath.
Yeah. And it's so people are so fired up. And so it's hard to for people not to play into the divide. And I'm so not political in a sense where I'm like, I don't want to be part of any divide. People, you're like, are you pro life? Are you pro choice? I'm like, I'm just pro woman. I'm like, I am for the woman. I have no right to choose for it. And they're like, then you're pro choice. I'm like, well, then call me pro choice.
Clearly not our business. Like it is not our business what a consenting adult chooses.
And that's the thing. And I'm like, and who am I to make that decision? I can't tell you how many women have reached out to me about getting an abortion. And I'm like, I could never tell you what to do. I don't know you. I don't know your story. You have to do what's best for you. I'm here for
Feelings,
you.
I'm like, I cannot make this decision for you.
No,
I cannot make this decision for you. I can give you the facts.
I
I
can't give
can
you
give you
proof. Yeah.
evidence. I
Yeah.
can educate you to help you make the best
And
decision.
that's all we can do. Yep. I wish more people had understood where we come from and all of that, because we get vilified for so much, especially in abortion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So my website is Wild Hearted Revolution. And so that is a radical reclaiming of the untamed woman. And that is like really getting back into alignment with your truth and your essence. So there's tons of resources on there. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I'm all over social media.
you have, because like I said, you just showed up on my FYP one day and I've not had an abortion, but I've had an experience where I would have gotten an abortion if I had her pregnant. And I just think that the work that you are doing is so
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
really, and women shouldn't just have to carry around the shame.
And that's, yeah.
But I think thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks. I'm so
And
glad.
like I said, guys, I am going to link Jennifer's favorite resources
Thank you for having